went to a truck stop and I asked all the truck drivers where they was going. And there was one guy going to California and there was one guy going to Florida. And they told me how long it was going to take. And so that's why I ended up in Miami. Because
how'd you get there? You caught a bus?
No, I just told you. I was at the truck stop.
So you hitchhiked?
I didn't hitchhike. I got in the back of the dude's 18-wheeler, me and my Rottweiler puppy and my suitcase. Yeah.
There you have it. There you have it. Salute. We have our man, Katt Williams, sharing his story, guys. And what can we say about this, right? This has really been the talk. It's been like the big talk. And I didn't really know his story prior to this. And so today we're going to have a conversation with two successful men, the brothers of the channel, the part of the Finance Bros group that we have. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to discuss how this man's story has inspired so many things. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of discussion that's going on in the country. And his story is really interesting. I personally did not know that his values were so significant to him compared to this, like the spoils of life that happen as a result of being in Hollywood. And I have to say that, I'm impressed. It seems like, like a righteous path or something that seems like it is coming from a superior position, but I don't know if it's really a bad thing. So without further ado, the first person we're going to bring up to the channel, he's a brother to the channel. His name is The Intentional Millionaire, and he's going to share with us his journey, his opinion based upon his journey about this gentleman, Katt Williams, who's been the talk all over the country. So without further ado, The Intentional Millionaire, how's it going?
What is going on, Sim? How's everything going?
And it's going all right. It's going all right. So yeah, man. So Katt Williams, man. Katt Williams telling us about his story, telling us about his experience and the success that's happened throughout the country as a result of his work. What do you think? Is there anything that you discovered in his story that you were not aware of?
Well, I wasn't aware that, one, he'd been in the game as long. I knew of Katt Williams, but time flies. So he's been in the game a while. I didn't know he does so much. I would like to say he does so much work in the back scenes where he shared that he helped people in the community. He do stuff and don't necessarily want to get the accolades. So I was really impressed with just a lot of the community work that he does in the back scenes, as well as it seems like he has a great understanding of spirituality. So there's just a few things that I picked up from him. And also too, he seems like he has a very good handle on finances. He understand what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. And I think the key thing I picked up is that he understands that as he make an abundance, he has an overflow. So now he can help other people. You muted.
I mean, it's impressive to really hear this because, the common narrative in Hollywood is that everyone's going to sell out for money, right? They're not going to put their values above the dollar. And so to see this sort of dichotomy with him, I was really, really surprised. So, so another brother to the channel who's going to come up here and have this conversation with us. And he's also no stranger to the channel. He's a successful man himself. And I'll be curious to hear what his thinking is behind the conversation that Shannon Sharpe and Katt Williams had. And if he feels like this is something that was more so for marketing purposes, or if it really seems like something that's really coming from a value standpoint where he's saying, hey, I'm not going to subdue myself to everything that everyone else is willing to do in the name of a buck. Instead, I'm going to hold my value up and I'm not going to allow anyone to feel like they can compromise that. So salute to Perry Unlikely. How's it going?
Salute. How's it going, man? How's it
Man,
going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Yeah. So, what are some of the things that you were surprised by when you learned about the story of Katt Williams?
So I didn't really know his story at all, but something I was really surprised about the nuts and bolts of it, right? Just the different things that he had been through up and to the point where I guess he really became, visible mainstream wise, right? Even as far as just like was Friday After Next, right? That's where I really became really familiar with Katt Williams, and I think mostly everybody did. But I always love hearing people's story because, as they say, a microwave society, everybody's focused on just these stories of how people get somewhere. Not really the story of how they get somewhere, but just people are fascinated with where people are at. So for him to fill in the blanks and stuff, and I feel like overall this story was really one of I would say it was, I don't even think aggression. I think it was just him. He's been kind of moving in silence. And just looking at different little spinoffs of obviously Shannon Sharp's interview, people are bringing facts to the table that really undeniable as far as with some of this stuff. So, man, I thought it was great. I thought it was insightful. And I think it's kind of it's just a microcosm of things that everybody deals with, regardless of what sector you're in, whether it's comedy, whether it's the movie industry, whether it's corporate America, wherever you're at. I think there's a lot to take from his whole story. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, how common is it for someone to put their values above making money? I mean, especially in the entertainment. I mean, I feel like that's just a super very rare thing, and it's comforting to hear that the people that are out there that prioritize that, ahead of just selling out for a buck, because I feel like people who do sell out for money, they have to spend the rest of their life doing what they can to deal with the way that they've had to do things. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that that's actually like a factor, like in all of our realms, right? Whether it's corporate work or just business work or really just entertainment in general? What are your thoughts on like really you compromising your integrity as a result of you wanting to succeed and having to choose between the two? I'll go with you, Tim, first.
Well, I think it comes back to character, your integrity, and your value system. I think a lot of times you find that a lot of people they start to lose that for the call for money. And I think that once you, to me, you build that before you ever get there, if that makes sense. And I think that either there's two areas that's critical to that. One is your upbringing, or two, when you really start to become self-aware of yourself, you work on that and you strive for that because you realize that your name and your word is the most powerful bond that you can have, and then you put the action behind it, which allow you to build the character, the integrity, and things like that. So I think for the Katt Williams situation, it seems like he built a lot of that in his journey of running. Sound like he came from a good family, but also because he came from a good family, he had little pockets and little seeds planted of integrity and character. And regardless of how you feel, you could just tell by some of the things that he say, um, even though he may be throwing a joke in between, but you could just tell by some of the things that he's saying, what he do, but also look at his actions now that he is a celebrity, he is successful. You can see some of the things that he really does.
Wow, love it, love it, love it. What do you think, Perry? You think that how does seeing someone who prioritized the value as a grown man, does that something that gives you a little bit of hope? I hear.
Yeah, it does, man. I love it because I think it's something that's not really illustrated in today's society. But I think it's also with that comes there are struggles, right? There's hurdles. Um, I think the big thing, man, is I think a lot of that is internal, right? That's like character. And when it comes down to that, you're gonna, anytime when you move in the right direction, right? I always say it has to be internal and it has to be about yourself. So I've always said, and even since I was super young, as far as whether, people cheat in today's society, people cheat like it's nothing. Well, for me, that's just an example, but that's, that can go to stealing, that can go to all kinds of character concerns, right? For me, and that's what I like the fact he wasn't willing to take shortcuts. For me, I appreciate that because it is a battle. It's a battle with seeing other people move in a certain way that's not correct, but they seem to be reaping benefit. Of course, you are taking hits to your name. You will at some point. You'll have to pay regardless. But I appreciate seeing that just because I've always said, you can look at cheating, for example. I don't not cheat for the other person. It's just an integrity hit. I don't want to see I would never want my integrity to take that hit. Like it would make me be a fraud is how I feel. So I move in a certain way with integrity, and anyone, in my circle or who I interact with just reaps the benefits of that. It's just a byproduct, but I'm not doing it for other people. It's always about myself and having to take the right path to begin with. Because if you don't, ultimately, look, can you? And some people maybe can, but could I look back and say, I got here, but I swindled people to get here? I couldn't do it and look in the mirror and couldn't do it and appreciate it. So all's lost anyway. So I appreciate seeing his journey and seeing someone who just really works on perfecting their craft and hasn't gotten involved with the shortcut. Because we know in the entertainment business, I mean, a lot of times it seems like the name of the game is get there as fast as you can. And regardless of how it doesn't matter how you get there, just try to get there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, there's a narrative that I've actually seen here online where they say that, a man that would cheat on his wife is the man that you don't want to do business with, because if they're willing to do that with someone that they probably have the strongest bond with or the strongest partnership with, then there's a high likelihood that they're not going to value your business relationship with you two as well. I agree with that narrative. It's really hard to tell if people are capable of actually compartmentalizing that sort of action, that infidelity there, to deceptive or integrity compromising behavior that they could do in the business space. And it's really, really challenging, and to hear Katt Williams' story, about how he did experience homelessness and how it was something that what he would say saved his life, right? Like, let's just hear this out right here, where he's talking about him being a young man at 13. Excuse me, wrong thing. Struggle streaming.
Yeah, because I probably had $2,500 on me. Like I was shoveling snow and cutting grass. Like I always had pockets full of money.
When did you make the decision that you were going to leave Ohio and go somewhere? And it ended up being Florida. So, but when
You muted.
He is a young man choosing to leave his hometown and go to a completely foreign space, right? And I used to go down 95, Perry. I don't know how much you end up on 95. Yeah. But every time I'm on 95, I would always see at least one car from Quebec. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. There's always at least one car from Quebec going down south, right? Yeah. So there is an understanding where that you need to get away from the snow and you need to go down to Florida. So do you guys think that homelessness is a necessary part of any successful person's journey? Or do you think that there's a way to actually be successful without having to experience adversity on that level? What do you think? I'll go with you, Perry. I'll go with you this time.
So I don't think no, I don't think it's necessary as far as, in terms of being successful, but I do think for many people it is normal, right? And it may not even be to the point of homelessness, but pushing up against that, literally having nothing. I think, and I do think it can build character, right? And I do also believe when you overcome those trials and things like that, and you keep pushing forward, when you look back, I do think it helps you to appreciate it more. You know, I'm saying that coming from a place of, you know, relatively coming from not much, but I do think sometimes, and I think it's a cultural thing, people get too wrapped up in struggle. I don't, for example, you know, struggle happens, right? But it's almost like, I do think people
A couple years
like
ago, I ended up in a motorcycle accident.
people like to tell a story of a struggle, unfortunately. Like, I think nothing's wrong with if you don't come from struggle. For example, my kids, you know, they don't come from struggle. Nothing's wrong with them, you know, taking that, keep my whatever struggles I went through as a part of their story. And you can use that to say, hey, well, this is what my father went through or whatever. Let me take this and build upon it. So I think it's fine, but I do think struggle, sometimes people just like everybody, even if it's music, right? People just love to say they came from the hood. They came from a hard upbringing. And I don't think it always has to be the case, but I do think if you handle those things the right way, they do build character. So no, I don't think you have to necessarily come from that, but I do believe, and I don't want to say struggle, but I absolutely believe humble beginnings. I think it really does help you. I have memories, some of my best memories. I was talking, I forget, not that long ago, I was talking about with someone about I remember winters sometimes, man, and the oil run out and you just get the kerosene heaters out until we could, you know, afford to make and we never did without, you know, we always ate, but you get the kerosene heater out and you huddle up in one room together, and it is what it is. So, but when I look back on those things though, and I remember, and I know where I'm at now, I appreciate that stuff. You know, I appreciate it because I think back on, like, I was just as happy then as I am now. So I just think it can be something that you build upon, but I don't think it's something that has to be a part of the journey.
Yeah, got it, man. What do you think, Tim? Do you think that level of struggling, homelessness, or someone actually experiencing incarceration, do you think that those are things that people need in order for them to receive their wake-up call, in order for them to be inspired to succeed and really go down the path towards them pulling themselves, I'm not going to even say pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, but really towards being upwardly mobile? What are your thoughts on something like that?
No, I think it's a path, but I don't think it's the basis of the path. And I think because everybody is different, some people learn faster than others. I think as a man, we do have to go through things. We do have to understand this, you know, the struggle doesn't necessarily have to be something like homelessness, something like not having enough money. The struggle could just be you can't get a handle mentally of yourself. The struggle could be that you may not have the finances. You can't, you may not be able to put food on the table like you want. So I think the struggle is just different for each individual, but I do think that we all have to go through something, because when we go through things, it allow us to build a character, allow us to build a resilience. It allow us to build some of the internal things that people then could see on the exterior. So that's kind of what I believe, because I think the struggle is just different for different people. And I think it's extreme struggles, and then there's some struggles that's not as extreme, but you still can end up with the same type of result.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, it's have my own challenges. I don't think that it should be like the sole defining moment for you. It really should be something that gives you an opportunity for you to appreciate the things that you have. And it could really easily be said, I think Perry said it, that, when you have the least, you just find value in just the people that you have around you, and you do whatever you can to make the best of it. And there's tremendous value in focusing on those things and not really prioritizing only having like an opulent life and, you know, being adorned by all these riches, you know. So I think that it's really, really interesting. So yeah.
Hey, and that's something I want to touch on real fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know to the extent of Intentional Millionaires travels, but obviously, you know, we've known each other a while. So whether it's, you know, being in Australia for a while, just different places, and I've been some places, you know, I've been to Paris a couple of times, you know, Vienna, Italy. You know, to me, and whether it's business, mine was just leisure, but I've traveled in, you know, in the US mostly on business and been a little bit everywhere. To me, once you've kind of done some stuff too, even if it doesn't even have to be a lot, I do think you kind of start to temper, you know what I'm saying? Once you've been places and you've got to experience some stuff, I do think the pressure of what some people, you know, like I say, the opulent lifestyle, right? Man, I've been places and fortunate just because of connections, man, and being able to do stuff that even back at times I couldn't afford it. I've been able to go, you know, I've been able to go places and do things. And when you're able to do that, I think you are able to temper it more. And I don't think you look at things from a standpoint of, like, a lot of people will scam and do this and that to get to a certain place. I think it's like if they could just experience a touch of it, they'd be like, hey, it's enjoyable. But there's all kinds of different levels of being able to enjoy stuff. You know what I'm saying? And what I've learned I've learned that from my personal travels, but I've learned it from work travels as well. And just spending different times, you know, all over the country, whether it was Miami, California, New York, just different things on the jobs over the year. And I didn't have to pay for it, right? But you just, it just gives you some sense of, hey, everything comes in due time, man. I hope that makes sense. But I think just as people do get a chance to travel, you start to see like some of the stuff people are reaching for and scamming for and trying to cut in that process. It's not even necessary. You know what I'm saying? But I think where people haven't experienced certain things, people tend to take shortcuts or whatever. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, Tim. So in your experience going down under, but in your experience going to Australia, right? What was your observation about the
That is funny though.
The lifestyle of the sentiment down there, man? As far as like projecting wealth, is there anything that you observed while you were there that made you believe that people wanted to look richer than they are?
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't catch the question.
Now, I was saying in reference to you going to Australia, is there any observable culture that you saw where people wanted to look and present an opulent life compared to America? What were your thoughts when you were down there, or were those observations that you didn't make it even in the first place?
I always make observations, but to me, it was none of that. It was more of people just living and being people. And it was just a good experience. From the standpoint of you just had people living. It was more laughter. You have people that was more willing to help. All of the above. So I would say that it was least likely to see a bunch of extra. Not saying it's not there. But I'm just saying for my experiences, and I went to a total of maybe 6 different cities, I guess. And it was pretty much the same, where it was just good people, having a good time, enjoying life, very friendly, willing to help, willing to go out of their way to help. And that was my experience. And that's been a lot of my experience in a lot of places that I've been. It seems like it's only here in the US where it's more of, let me show you and let me kind of show you by either putting up a facade or show you by bragging, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. I mean, unfortunately, like that's one of the concerns here on YouTube is that, they really try to taper the advertising that happens on this platform as a result of children being so impressionable, like even if you think about like cereal commercials, toys and stuff like that, children are going to ask their parents for the things that they're seeing repeatedly online. And so we could also say that same exact thing with adults. They see the logos and they want to be adorned in those same logos. They want to go to France and purchase these things at a low price. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if this country would really survive if consumerism wasn't at the level that it's at right now, because so many industries are supported by that sort of mentality. I don't think we can have a large carve out of people who are not participating in it, honestly. So those are the things that I see.
Ain't what I signed up for.
I didn't experience anything once I left home that I hadn't signed up for. If anything, it saved my life. Me being homeless for that small period of time allowed me to see all of the people that were in that situation and to see that these were lawyers and doctors and teachers, and that these people were white and black and Asian and Indian. And the only thing that all of these homeless people had in common was they made a bad decision and aligned themselves with drugs. And I interviewed them all. What drug? What? And guess what, Shannon? Nobody had a great story. Nobody had a great story of what meth had done for them, what crack had done for them, what cocaine had done for them, what heroin had done for them, what speed had done for them. Nobody had them stories. Everybody's story was, I had my life together. And then I decided to do this dumb thing. And I lost my wife. I lost my house. I lost my cars. I lost my reputation.
Yeah. So there's something to be said about that, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about these challenges, it's interesting when you really hear him tell it. And I've never really been homeless to that level, honestly. But even you as a young person telling yourself, I've been in a situation also when I was running a business where I said that I was going to come across a lot of people. And my primary objective was to learn and glean as much as possible from people who are older than me. Then I started asking them questions. I'd come across people 50, 60 years old. And I would ask them, if you had an opportunity to do things different, what's one of the few things that you would do different today had you known about it, before, and a lot of them were saying, if I had an opportunity to do it, I would have been more responsible with the way that I spent my money. Some people said that I wish I would have been more present and lived in the moment and not focus so much attention on saving money. I didn't really get an opportunity to enjoy life like that, but there's something to be said about that. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that there's value in his ability as someone who is successful, him being able to say, hey, I know I'm out here homeless with you. I'm a teenager, and not to just focus on people who only look like him, but to hear the story about how none of these external factors, the illicit drugs and everything like that, none of them did any benefit to them. Do you think that it's important for people to learn from the stories of others, or do you think that people should really have firsthand experience with these challenges? So I'll go with you, Tim.
I think the problem is, I think that most people should use wisdom. And if you notice, that's the key component that Katt used is wisdom. See, the fastest way, I like to say the shortcut is wisdom. The hard way, the hard way, the struggle way, the more resistant way is not listening and going through the landmine unequipped, unprepared. And the problem with that is, yeah, you have, let's just say we have Katt. He may have won, but look how many didn't make it. And that's the part I think we got to pay attention to, because even for myself, I even use myself in this example, is that's one of the benefits I can say that helped me a lot was I learned from my dad that one of the key components to life is you can learn what to do and what not to do, paying attention to other people. So pay attention. And I think that's what allowed me to really pick up on, hone in on some of the stuff I just didn't want to be a part of. I just didn't want to go out and recreate. And it allowed me to pay attention to some of the right things and then get focused on some of the things that I do want. And then how to, because the best leader has to first learn to follow. So it was, so I say all that to say though, I think Katt, he was young when he left, but he picked up wisdom so early on. So he was equipped so young with a key component, and that's paying attention and learning by watching others and then realizing, hey, I don't want to be part of that. So I'm not going to follow the steps that they did to get them to that place.
I completely understand. And I think that that's really good. I mean, for him to say out of his own mouth that homelessness saved him. I don't know if I've heard this story a lot of times about people's challenges and their experiences overall, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that homelessness saved them. So I think that it's really, really interesting. What's your thought, Tim? I mean, it's going to be Perry, on the idea of him wanting to learn more from other people about their mistakes and their mishaps, and then him using that in order for him to empower himself going into the future.
Yeah, I respect it. I like that because when I was younger, I never understood youth is wasted on the young. But I mean, that's spot on. Like, for him to have the mindset to ask and try to learn in that moment is priceless. You know, something I've because people I've worked with over the years have told me just about like having kids, right? Because I've always worked with people that were older, and you know, they tell you to be present in the moment. And something I've had to work on is just, and I'm really realizing is like, you know, even with my kids is, it's easy to think you're, you know, well, I'm doing this. I'm out here investing, doing these things to try to provide a better life for them. And that's what's best. But what I know is, right, based off of other people telling me who have already been where I'm at, is that they really don't care. What they care about is my time. And that's hard when you're so focused on trying to propel forward financially, especially for them and your family. But to be able to just pause and say, look, make sure you take the time and spend that, because you can't get that back. So to be able to do, it's a lot of that stuff we know, but do we practice it? And for him to actually be asking those things, I think is you know, is great. And I think also, you know, in terms of him looking and, you know, in terms of him speaking on being poor or homeless and that being a positive, I do think back to some of the times where I had much less and was straight struggling. And, you know, some of those, you can even call it fear or call it whatever. The I will do anything, you know, legally the right way, not to go back there. It doesn't matter if it's fear. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if it's a fear, just having that understanding of what it was like to be in that state. If I got to go out, if I got to get a product and go out and sell, literally buy it in the store and go out and sell straws on the street, then that's what I would do before I go back to that place. If it provides and keeps me from going back. So I do think definitely some of the struggle can propel you, certainly when you don't want to have to go back to that place, but you also learn in those places to become resourceful. And, you know, that's what I think helps you all on the way. So I definitely appreciate, that aspect of what he's saying there, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I thought that was really, really interesting to hear, man. And I agree with you guys. I think that there's power in you being able to learn from the mistakes of others and the mishaps, because it can have really like a positive impact on your life. And yeah, when you're young, you think that there's an unlimited amount of time and that you're going to be young forever, but you don't really realize that every day is passing by, and the more that you squander that time, the more you potentially be regretful in the future. That man,
Right.
those were the good days. And I say that adulting is overrated. I mean, I ran to being an adult, and man, some of my best times when I had the least. Like really just like my primary objective was to figure out what to do when I get home, just to have fun. So
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
that sort of narrative is really like something that I think that it's unfortunately overlooked. And there's so much emphasis on growing up, being 21, being 25, whatever it is. But it really doesn't matter that much, because a lot of people are sitting at home after they get off work. They're not really having an opportunity to connect with a lot of people. And you don't know that these times in your life are going to be the times where you're the most social, the most engaged with people outside of the four walls of your home. So yeah, I think that is really good.
What? Talk about scared straight. You ain't got to worry about me. If it ain't weed or nicotine, you won't see me touching it. I don't want no parts. I done seen what these things can do to people. Anything that take over your free will is the devil itself.
Facts.
I think there's tremendous wisdom. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I have to say that I was really surprised to hear him having these sentiments. And it's something that I didn't know was really present, because I only knew the characters that he played, and I never really knew his true values and opinions. So were you guys surprised by what you discovered in this interview about the things that he really holds to be like the core of what is really moving him forward, or was it something that you guys were already aware of? I'll go with you, Tim.
Yeah, I was really shocked that not necessarily saying he didn't know, but it just sounds like he's really in tune with life. He's very self-aware. And that tells me that he and this is the thing. He did what a lot of us don't do. We all guilty of it as kids when our parents telling us to do certain things. We think what they're saying is either wrong, is outdated, or we just don't want to listen for whatever reason. And we go off and do our own thing. That's part of being a teenager, being a young adult. But just imagine though, if we took and followed everything that was given to us step by step, how much further we would have been along so much sooner. And I think he just had an opportunity. He had good upbringing. He left at a young age, but then he took and started learning wisdom when he was on his own. And now look how seasoned he is today, because he just took and exercised that muscle in a sense. He really nurtured his ability to have wisdom, his ability to have a broader scope, his ability to be able to communicate, his ability to do a lot of things came off of just one area that he was able to flourish in. And it may not have been one. I'm just using for example because I don't know him personally, just going off of the interview. But I think that's the callous that we don't necessarily talk about. And I get it. We all individual, we all humans. We decide to listen or not. But we do have to know, because we decide not to, that makes it harder for us actually to do later on. So you either gonna pay for it now or later, but either way, you're gonna have to go through it.
Facts. Exactly. What about you? What about you, Perry? Were you surprised to discover that this man had such a strong value system, or was it something that you already aware of?
Yeah, it's something that I won't say I'm surprised because I really try not to. Well, I won't say I was 100% surprised. I guess I hadn't thought about it much, but I do still think, because of how you see him in general, especially with a comedian, right? I do think it would lean more in you thinking that, uh, and even some of the roles he's played, right? Whether it be a pimp or whatever, I do think it would lean more so away from the way that he is. So I definitely was impressed with it. I definitely was, and felt like he really stayed true to it. And I really even feel like when he was telling the story about, his father and things like that, like even think about with his father. I don't know if you all saw like the way that he basically said he didn't even. So put it this way, he talked about him leaving home, and even in the reason, he didn't say abusive or anything like that. Even the way he just spoke was basically not to discredit his father, and still saw him as a good person. But it's almost like one of those things where like, yo, I had to go because it wasn't going to work out for me. And he just kind of left it at that. So I definitely I saw integrity in it. And I will say we do pick up these ideas of certain people in the industry being a certain way. And that's where I did find it. I wasn't shocked, but that's where I would say I feel like 90% of the people in the industry like him definitely aren't coming from that same angle. So I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, I definitely was impressed as well. I think that it gives you a little bit of hope, that there are people out there who are making money, who are also seeing value in having a strong foundation. So it's really comforting. It lets you know that, like the the people who are out there really manipulating people based upon the whole desire that someone wants to be rich and famous, that there's actually some people out there who are not prioritizing taking advantage of people or prioritizing money in order for that to happen. So yeah, I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not hearing any volume.
Um, you said you don't hear no volume, said Perry?
Yeah, I don't hear any volume.
Oh, all right. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. All right. Yeah. So I think that it's really, really interesting to really hear someone with his sentiment. I don't know what I did with my. Oh, I know what I did. I know what I did. I know what I did. My bad. My bad. My bad. I'm over here. Struggle. Streaming. Here we go. Oops.
Your life would have been had you stayed in Dayton, Ohio?
Listen, I didn't.
Have you ever thought about what your life would have been had you stayed in Dayton, Ohio?
No, that's like asking somebody that's in the NBA for 14 years, like, what would have happened if you didn't come to the NBA? Oh, I shudder to think. I thought it was what I was made for. I thought it was what I was built for. Anybody that knows me will tell you that when they first met Katt Williams, when I was Cat in the Hat, and they tell these stories about how he changed his name. Look, the truth of the matter is Disney sued me. Yeah, I was Cat in the Hat. They sent me a cease and desist letter, and I'm not even making $25,000 a year. And the mega company Disney has sent me a cease and desist telling me I can't use any variations of that name. Fine.
Yeah. So it's I think that it's really interesting just hearing his story, man. And there's a lot to really learn from someone. I think that what happened, even with me, I felt like, a lot of the story that was told about him was always like something related to him getting arrested or something that was associated with him getting in some sort of trouble. And it was not really referencing this sort of behavior or this sort of mindset. He, I remember there was an altercation he had with like a young person on like a football field or something like that, and just those are just the things that I've observed. And I didn't really hear conversations like this, you know. Oh,
Yeah. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
my bad. Something I appreciate in what he just said. Man, I lost my. Well, you know, when he was basically saying like, you know, what would you have been if, you know, if whatever. And it's funny because not that long ago, I asked, you know, I asked my mother. I think I asked my sister too. I was like, hey, did you all know when I was young that I was going to leave home? They were like, yeah, we knew that. And I was kind of shocked. Like, how? They just said, we always knew we knew very young that you were going to leave home and go do something. We just knew. And it's just funny. It's like what he was saying, right? Because even though he's a celebrity and on a different scale, it's no different for the rest of us. Like, and so one thing for me, like you asked me, so like, what if you had never left home? I can't really put into words what that would be. I can't remember a world where I thought, and I was in Virginia for 24 years, but it's like I always knew there was another mission. I always knew that. And the thing is though, where I want to decipher that is where I'm from, the part of Virginia I'm from, I felt like I had to go. There's other parts of Virginia I could have been from where you don't really have to leave home. Like you're in an area where you can make it, right? So as I'm in Atlanta now, you know, so I still think it's kind of tailored to like where I'm from. I'm just from like Southwest Virginia, a small part, right? But it's just funny to look back and my family be like, oh yeah, we always knew you were going to leave. We just knew that. So it's I just think that's interesting. And that's the same way I see it, the same way he did. I don't think I ever knew anything. I knew it, but I didn't know that it was so much strong that pretty much everyone that ever knew me back home knew the same. They knew I was going to all. He's not something I talked about. I think they just saw my ambition and me wanting to go do things. So that's something I can identify with him as well. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, Tim. What about yourself, man? Do you feel like where you're at today is something that you intentionally planned for? Is it something that you are destined to really pursue?
Initially, no. As I started to grow and make changes and go through a few trials and errors, yes. Because I knew that one, going back to kind of what Perry talked about, I didn't want to go back to where I came from. One, and then two, I realized that the only way I'm gonna have a different outcome is I got to be the one that's got to be responsible for the work. So it was pretty much an easy formula at that point. You get what you put in, and if you put in and you go above and beyond and you do the extra, you focus on some of the right stuff based on what you're trying to do, you're going to get the results. And the key component that I think Katt talked about throughout the entire video is one thing that he don't say, but I just want to kind of point out is he had belief. See, in a lot of times in a financial space, I think that's the first challenge that most people have. They don't believe that they can get out of their current situation, or they don't believe that some level of financial success is for them. They think it's for everybody else. So I think once you believe it, then you execute. And belief just means that you know it's for you too and not everybody else. Because some people can get excited about looking at other people flourish and they still could be suffering. And it's you're right. You supposed to watch other people and and appreciate and promote other people, but you also got to know I want to become just like them too. So you do it to promote, appreciate, and celebrate, but now you also should be doing it so you could become part of it. I like to say you need to go from being a spectator to playing in the game.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, let me just say this too. Like, For me, right, when I left to go to college, man, I've been out of school for a little while. So I was going back and I was starting from scratch. And I remember just telling myself, and there was some people that kind of hated, just like, man, you can go back at this age. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be back here just like everybody else. And I literally told myself, you know what? If I fail, I'll never come back home. I'll never come back home. And I knew I couldn't afford. I mean, my mom's at home, my family's at home, everything I love was at home. I knew if I went with that mindset, I had no choice but to be successful. And I knew I would not go back home in failure. There's no way I would. So that's why when I step out and go into something, failure is just not an option. It can't. But I plan probably a little too. I don't know if you can plan too hard, but I probably plan overboard because of that. But when I set something in place to do it, it's just failure's not an option. And I'm gonna keep on doing it until I can figure out how to do it successful. If that's the true mission. You have these little side missions and things you do that you don't necessarily have to take as serious. They're just things that you do. But when it comes to that de facto, this is what I got to accomplish. It's always been for me. Failure is not an option. I pretty much push myself on a ledge where I got to be successful. I put myself in that mind frame where I have to, so.
Wow. That's good. That's good. That's good, man. Speaking of failure.
Have you ever been booed, Katt?
Yes. Yeah. I have.
What was that feeling like? Did it want to give up? Because when you have, I don't know how early it was in your career. Obviously, it hadn't been I don't think it's in the last decade because you've been immaculate.
Consider that New Year's resolutions are not the answer for you this year. You need real solutions and therapy.
Yeah. So
as a therapist.
So with that said, the idea that you've experienced failure, I think it's really humbling, right? It's really humbling. And for him to even have that delayed response and say, I've experienced it, like I've been there. And I think that it's really good because in this conversation, it seemed like he was always on the top, Like, I'm the best guy. I've been running it for the last 20 something years. But to hear these answers to these questions, I think that it's really, really good. So Tim, do you think that it's important for you to fall on your face on your way to your journey? On your way for you to accomplish something great? Do you think that there's value in you being able to have these humbling moments, along the way?
Absolutely. I can say that I had a few. I lost money. I started stuff and didn't finish. Man, there's so much stuff I can't even remember it all because it's just so much different things. But I do think that you have to have setbacks so you can have press forwards. I don't necessarily look at it as failure. I look at it as it's part of the process. Now, then I looked at it as some level of failure, but now I looked at it as it's part of the process. And I think that just really the process is what separates the ones that's serious and the ones that just talk. And I think that spectrum though is different for different people. And some people, they may run into those roadblocks and they don't get back up. Or they say stuff like, oh, it wasn't for me. Or let me pray on it. Or all these things. But the reality still goes back to you still got to do it. Good, bad, or indifferent. You still absolutely have to do it. But also, too, it allows you to get it again. The setbacks allow you to understand more of self. It allows you to really look in the mirror, really understand that, you don't know it all. If you may, be a little overconfident, it lets you understand that you still haven't arrived yet. And those are the type things it done for me. It allowed me to really sit back and say, hey, you still got more work to do. Hey, the area that you never probably knew about or paid attention to, there was some areas now I got to go do some more work because I didn't know about that. I didn't realize that I wasn't the best in that area. Those are just the type of things that we got to all identify. And I just think Katt, like I said, I just going back to, I just think because he identified wisdom so young, that's how and why he's able to communicate, you know, his wins, his setbacks, and he take it all as, but that's what made the Katt Williams that we see today in this interview.
Precisely. Yeah, Perry, do you think it's valuable for you to be humbled by, you know, obstacles and challenges along the way on your way to achieve the things that you want to achieve?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I do, but I equally think it's very important for you to remember that sometimes what you're dealing with is circumstantial or just not the right fit. A great point is, guys, there's coaches who have been fired who are legends. It just wasn't the right fit. It just simply wasn't the right fit. There's people who can sell and the economy is trash and it just, you know what I'm saying? So think about it. You know how many real estate investors work their tail off, or real estate salespeople work their tail off in 2009, 10 and failed, but now they're multimillionaires. It's the economy. But at the same time, there were people who maybe were with a different brokerage who said, look, who had the knowledge to say, look, well, let's flip this and then flip it to investors because investors are buying. And at that time, those who went with investors and had someone to help them with that were successful. Sometimes, so I think at the same time, it is important to be humbled and to stay humble. It's also important to understand there are literally tons of people super successful who have flat out gotten fired. They just weren't a good fit. And it's so important. It's important not to take all that on like you're just a flat out failure. To me, failure is a part of the journey, but you take that, you learn from it, you move and you improve. That's all it is. So I think you got to take a middle of the road approach on it. But yeah, being humbled, absolutely. And I think it's important to stay humble at the end of the day. Now we have people that, you know, get online and kind of fake it, but life will humble you no matter who you are. It will do it. So you might as well work on staying humble to begin with. But yeah, I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, definitely, man. You know, I think that if we don't have those tests, we're gonna feel like we can't lose, you know. And if you don't have an opportunity, what do they say? You know, you have to be tested in order for you to be to have a testimony, you know. I think there's tremendous value in you being able to be resilient, like amongst all sorts of challenges, you know. Like I think that business challenges that I experienced, me having to come up with $7,000 in a few days, me having to come up with $5,000 in a few days, really forced me to really be creative and to not resort to doing things that are illegal and compromise my integrity and my freedom. And whenever things get to a place where they are moving in that direction, then you have to do whatever you can to get away from it. Because I think that that's kind of the expectation, is that you have to be willing to do any and everything in order for you to succeed. And a lot of things are not worth it out here for real, you know, like
right.
I don't want to sit up here and lose my freedom behind me trying to support a business or trying to be involved in business at all, doing scams and the like. You know, I'm seeing all sorts of things that are happening from 2020, catching up to people now. And now the federal government saying, hey, we noticed you did this, we noticed you did that. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, really. And the federal government has an unlimited amount of time. They can go back 20 years, 25 years, and just watch you, just sit there and watch and watch and watch you, you know. And then whenever you say, "Oh, I'm getting out," you know, I'm rolling out, and they say, "All right, let's go ahead and bring them in," you know. So
Yeah. Yep.
unlimited time. So it's important, though. It's important. Tim, did you comment on it? I think you did. Were you going to say something, Tim?
No, I was just gonna say, what them PPP loans at?
Man,
Exactly.
but there are people who didn't get investigated, and they're saying too, like, "Oh man, I got away with it. I got away with it."
Mhm.
Well, see, but that's where I think you can't necessarily say you got away with it, because they could be slow at doing things.
Have you gotten away with it so far?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there's still people be getting caught. I just saw Perry, did you see Bitcoin Rodney ended up getting hemmed up?
Oh no, did he?
They said that he had some sort of man. Anyway, I'm not gonna.
Oh man.
Because one of the guys that he follows, I mean, then one of the guys he's associated. I don't know if you know Todd, Millionaire Mentor,
I know you're talking about.
Todd Smith. So that's when I first saw it. Bitcoin Rodney. He had like a Lambo with his stuff all over the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, allegedly, who knows what the real deal is, man. But yeah, I mean, people also get falsely accused, but I don't know,
But
man.
most of the time, it's right.
They said the Fed stuff is stuff they already have evidence behind. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's really challenging. Yeah.
Tough.
Those are the things that I saw. Let me let's go to the chat. Let me see. Salute. So we had Ine here, and then this is what she says. She says, I think it depends on a person's temperament. This is a reference to them being wise and learning from the mistakes of others. She says, meaning there are some people that won't allow wisdom to whisper in their ear, and they need a whirlwind. Exactly, right? So they need to be knocked completely over the side of their head in order for them to actually find value in what's going on. And this is what this is the only way that they feel like they can learn. And she says, yes, have faith in your ability to use what it is in you, and that there are people and resources out there to help you, right? So exactly, you know, you want to make sure that you're not compromising, you know, your integrity in order for you to succeed out here in these business streets. And salute to our brother Peter Investor M for coming through, right? 5 M's, mindset, manifest, math, materialize, mastering. I like that. I've never heard of that before. The 5 M's. Yeah, so salute. You know, it's just really interesting, man. Like, I think there's so much to learn from all these guys out here. And you know, like there's an endless amount of wisdom that you can glean from a lot of these people story. And it really surprised me. I was really shocked. I'm not gonna lie, man. They're just things that I wish I would have known ahead of time. And I think that we also have a way of really having an affinity or an allegiance with people based upon the value system. And when we see that the value system aligns with ours, then we have more of an inclination to really be on board with the things that they're talking about. You know, like if we talk about this content creation thing, if we talk about just like the integrity that we want to have behind doing content, or just content creation in general, and not sitting up there, you know, doing anything and everything, telling people things that could potentially compromise their freedom, all in the name of the play, you know. So that sort of thing I think is super, super valuable. And what can I say? You know, it's like you don't want to sit up there and be the result. I mean, be the reason behind someone getting in trouble. I personally don't want that to be the case. And that's the first thing that they're going to say is, hey, you know, I went here on this channel, and as a result of me being here on this channel, this is what I saw and this is what I observed, you know. So that's one. I want to cover this one last thing right here that I feel like is really valuable in reference to our guy right here, Katt Williams. This is what he says. I'm trying to run away from these ads because they're getting me today. These guys are making a bag off this this interview. So
I don't hear any sound. Yeah, I don't hear any sound.
oh no. Oh no, I didn't hear you. Oh man, my bad. I did not unmute.
Right.
Oh, struggle streaming. All right. Essentially, here we go. Right here.
I mean, experience. Most comedians don't get booed enough. I mean, this is how you end up with a Michael Blackson, who's a real African doing a fake African accent. Okay, this guy is mad at me. All I did was give him the best advice of his life. Remember, he was wearing dirty dashikis, and I told him he needed to dress to be in the position that he's trying to say that he's in. And if you're the African king of comedy, sir, there's actually comedians in Africa doing comedy. If you're going to say that, you got to go to Africa and get a school, dude. Everybody got, you got to put in some work. And these guys, they take my advice, they change their whole persona, and then they hate me for it. And generally, I'm just too big to comment or make a statement about it or do a live or any of that. But when it gets to be.
Yeah. So it's, I think that, I believe that this guy has been attempting to contribute positively to people's either content or really just content creators. Do you guys think that you can learn from your competitor, right? If your competitor is telling you something that they think would be to your benefit, do you believe that you'd be willing to actually even listen to it in the first place, right? Because he's talking about Michael Blackson. They're not exactly in the same exact space, although they are both competitive comedians, but they don't really cover the same exact topics because they have different personas. Do you think that you can learn from someone you're in competition with, Tim?
Absolutely. That's how other companies are started. That's similar. They just take the structure, the infrastructure of the competition, they emulate it, and then they add some flair to it. They do a few things different. That's the business model of just business. But also that's the model of wisdom. I don't. That's all I really have on that. That's the model of wisdom. Is you can learn. You actually your best critique for growth comes from your competition, because they're gonna find all your holes and all your flaws, and all you got to do is just pay attention and get it. That's where, going back to what Perry stated, be humble. And now you use your competition to make yourself bulletproof, to fix a lot of the shortcomings or shortfalls. So actually, competition is your best adversary, but your best item to use for growth. Because their job is to go find all your critiques, all your weak points. And now it's your job to go strengthen all of those points.
What do you think? You agree?
Yeah, I think he's spot on. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And if you even look at it, right? Look at like the small companies that come out here, the tech companies. Who is usually acquiring the small tech companies in order to stifle the competition in the first place?
The big ones.
The big ones, right?
Yep.
Right? Because now I'm going to be fair. I don't think America has been enforcing antitrust laws for the last 20-something years. I don't believe it. Ever since 2000, maybe 2002, when I heard about Bill Gates being, under fire with the whole Windows thing, I don't think that they've really been enforcing it. you know, because there's been way too many acquisitions. When we think about even the likes of Cisco, I remember Cisco had like 360, I don't know if it was million or $1 billion, and they were just sitting on it during 2008. And they used that money in order for them to acquire companies. I can't remember what was the name of that there was like a little handheld camera that you could have. God, I can't remember what it was, but they were buying this company, they were buying that company during the time that people were economically doing bad, you know. So
let's just think about Google and what's the app called? Waze.
Well, Waze.
Waze, the
Oh,
Waze app.
they own that?
Yeah, Google bought them.
I didn't even know that, man.
It was Google's biggest competition because they had the police and the cameras. Google said, no, they're growing too fast. We're going to buy them out.
I didn't even know they had bought them.
Yeah.
Listen, I do not get on the road without Waze. I am a self-admitted Waze field reporter. If I see the boys anywhere, I'm hitting 2 buttons. Bam, bam. Okay, all right. At least I know my people behind me are covered, you know.
So think about that. But also think about Facebook.
Yeah.
He stole it from the 2 twins.
Yeah, the
Winklevoss twins.
Yeah. Like, so he found out exactly what they was doing, and he went and created it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the fundamental of business.
Yep.
That's what they said. That's what they said really makes Bill Gates like a savage, was the fact that his parents were like IP attorneys, and one of his parents was an IP attorney. So he was able to take all that intellectual property from the people who worked for him and claim it as his because it was under his umbrella. But yeah, they say the same thing about that. And I don't know if we can say that about Steve Jobs with I forgot what his name. The guy who's still alive, I can't remember what his name is. He has the WGU, the university. Anyway, that whole thing, you know, about being able to take credit for stuff that people are out here doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man. I don't know if we can really get away from that. And it is part of our experience out here. What does Peter Investor M says? He said Jay Leno or Jerry Seinfeld used to live entirely on a comedy stand-up earnings, right? And save and invest the income generated by their TV and media earnings, right? I had no idea that was the case even for Jay Leno, but that's really interesting, right? And he says Katt Williams was getting the bags from his comedy tours and getting extra income from Netflix specials. Guys, he said that he's had 100 shows a year for like the last 12 years.
Yeah, he said 100 city tour for 19 years. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I can't remember one of the comedians said Katt was getting $100,000 a show.
Wow.
He stops. What is that? 100 times 100,000 times 100?
That's crazy, man.
That's real money right there. Was that 10 million? 1,000?
Yeah.
Is that 10 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and that also goes to show you, man, people do love to tell their story with embellishments, man. That's like a human, you know, like if you were poor, you know, it's like you might have grew up poor and struggled, but you never missed a meal, but you want to act like you only got to eat 2 times a week. It's like people love to embellish on it, you know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. It's like, man, first time I went, they wouldn't even let me in. It's like, dude, they clearly do let you in. Like, but I'm not even saying him. I'm not talking about Katt Williams. I'm talking about the people he was talking about, right? Some of their stories is just, you know, he seemed to disagree, obviously, with some
Steve
of that.
Harvey.
And there does seem to be enough stuff out there that even the Steve Harvey thing for me, and me and my brother talk about it for years. That daggone high top. When I found out that was fake, that was like finding out there's no damn Santa Claus. I was gone. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, hold up. This thing is fake. And we used to always say, how's that thing so perfect?
That is tight.
How's it so clean? And then we found out. Now, he said he's the reason. Now, I never heard that. He said he's the reason that man. He basically had to take the man's hair plug off or whatever. But yeah, man, just stuff like that. But what I do love about it is, for some reason, what I liked about this interview. And I'm not going to, how people say anti-establishment. It's not that. But there's nothing worse than being in a space where people think you're supposed to lie to keep a code. It's one thing to keep a code and not be lying. Like, but I'm supposed to lie against myself because of the lies you've told and just be silent about it. So I love that was that thing about, no, here's the real, what you going to do about it. And the proof is out there. I appreciate that, because to me, that is some form of vindication, because what I can tell you is, even like Katt Williams was talking about how he was quick. There's a video out there of him running in Memphis's gym. Now, no, it ain't no 4.4, but he's smoking a lot of people his age, bro. Bro was moving quick. Like, so I just love all the kind of the validation you get. And I do believe this interview, he came in there and said, this will be the biggest interview ever. And I think life is about sometimes waiting your time. And I think it's funny that interview is the second most watched interview in the history of YouTube.
The history of YouTube.
The history. Behind Joe Rogan.
Tim, did you say it was 39 yet? It's 38 million views right now. It's been right at a week. I think it was last Tuesday when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 39?
Yeah, it's at 39 now.
So I think that's the deeper lesson provided. And from what I've seen, most of what Katt said can be, it looks factual. And I think that's the deeper lesson in life, is when you do things the right way, you take the right path. Let's face it, the numbers that this is getting, all those who he felt done wrong by, even Steve Harvey, they can't top these numbers. Your story's out there your way now, and it'd be very hard for them to come back and try to top that now. So I just think there's a process to doing things, and you'll be vindicated the right way.
I even go one step further, because I know a lot of people calling out Shannon Sharp, calling out Katt Williams. Yeah. But I actually think I got a different perspective on it. I think Katt did something phenomenal from the standpoint of, one, for all the comedians that he mentioned, he gave them relevancy again. They relevant again. So even if they wasn't in the industry or their careers was kind of stalled out, they get a chance to get another run. That's one. I also think for all the people in the YouTube space that cover that, everybody can get a chance to eat.
Yeah, good point.
I think we getting so caught up on the con of it, but there's so many pros to that. Also, what did he do? He just made it where somebody that somebody that looks like you and I is got a chance at being number 2 on the YouTube charts.
It's cool. It's cool, man.
So it really it's some of those things that we don't pay attention to. So I look at it as he dropped so many jewels on paying attention, talking about work ethic, talking about beating out your competition. Anya mentioned talking about trademarking, talking about some of the fundamental things that we need right now to be successful coming out of a rough economy last year, from the standpoint of, if you didn't have a plan, you suffering right now. So I think that people really should be paying attention, but also too, he showed you that you could be one interview or one step or one career path from changing your life. But
and let me tell you, and here's another key to that is this: he's been silent. The reason also it worked so well, He's been silent for years doing his thing. If he had been nagging and mad and all upset and saying stuff every couple of months, every couple of weeks, he would have just looked like a hater. But when you go about your business, your time comes that you can sit down, get it off your chest, and move on. And that's another example of it ain't like he hasn't felt this way for some time, but he wouldn't spewing it out all over the place like everybody else does all the time. Because then you look like a hater. He went about his business. The time came, and this is, I mean, if this isn't the biggest game of chess I've ever seen, I don't know what bigger checkmate there is.
Yeah, and Shannon said that he was trying to get him on the show back in 2021.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 22, because we're in 24 now. Yeah.
Crazy.
He was trying to get him on the show back at the end of 22.
Yeah, that's wild.
So it goes to show you. But again, this goes back to, you know how he was able to do that? Because he built up so much wisdom. With wisdom's come patience. With wisdom comes calculation. With wisdom come vision.
Yep.
And he displayed all of those traits when he did this. And a lot of people think he really done it to this. No, I think he really done it for a bigger vision, was to put comedians back on the map.
Yep.
And also to point out to comedians, you don't have to sell yourself short to be successful. See, it's a lot of little nuggets, at least, that I think that he was bigger than the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But, you know, I think it was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Powerful. I mean, number two of all time. And, you know, hopefully we can go ahead and beat Joe Rogan's platform, and we can have, you know, somebody that looks like us who does it. So salute to them for sure.
Absolutely.
That's not what we're talking about. These are business conversations that deal with businessmen.
Right.
Right. When you're good at something, you should progress. The guys that are not as good, they should fall down by the wayside. That's natural.
So you believe if your talent doesn't support it, you should fall by the wayside, and the guys that have the talent and they get elevated, they should move.
No, that's what water says. That's what the universe say. The universe say the levels. No, I say. Who am I? I'm nobody. But I'm working every day as if I think that's what
should happen.
Is how it should be. And I'm choosing comedians that also write and work hard and don't steal other people's material. And I'm making sure that they all make $300,000 a season. And I'm making sure that they're not ever signed to me or my conglomerate. And that's why they're successful. No, you can work with me and still be an independent businessman, boss owner like you came in.
Right.
I don't need you to be subservient to me. That's those other guys that make you pay dues.
That's cool, man. That's cool. That's cool. I think that represents, man, really what it should be all about. It doesn't take, if I can do something for you guys, it doesn't take anything from me. I don't lose anything. You know what I'm saying? I don't lose anything. But so I love that, you know, because there's such a mentality. Yo, let me get this, man, because I'm trying to show I got this, but I don't want to show others how to get it. So I really have an appreciation. I love that, man. I have an appreciation for that, man. There's enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah. So, yeah, Tim, do you think that there's value in someone who's not trying to keep you chained and keep you behind, you know, as a result of them making contributions into your career?
Yeah, I think that's the most powerful thing, because you generally can allow people to grow and succeed. In the best joy, what people tend to think is because their character and integrity is off, to me, is when you train and show somebody something and you generally give them everything so they could be more successful than you. That's the biggest joy that a leader actually wants, because a leader already then pre-planned and pre-thought as someday they not going to be here or their stuff may fall back, but they want to make sure that they pass along enough information that somebody can supersede them.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, so we're gonna go to the chat real quick. And we had a question here. What does he say? So the guy that I was thinking about was Steve Wozniak. That's the guy who was really like I think that he was the hands-on guy behind building Apple. He was the one that was there with Steve Jobs in the very beginning. And I felt like he was the heart of the Apple brand. And I think that Steve Jobs was the vision behind all of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so Peter Investment has a question. What does he say? He says, what does the panel think about Chat GPT and its impact in the job? You know, I'll let you go ahead and answer that, Tim. What do you think? You think Chat GPT is impacting the work that you do, or is it something that is not really applicable in your space?
No, it's not really applicable in my space. However, I do see it affecting a lot of jobs because still at the end of the day, the most expensive item on the company's books is an employee. So anytime they can find a way to cut that cost, that's going to add to the bottom line for them, which is profit, they're going to do it. So I do think ChatGTP is going to become a threat. I also think Google's Gemini, I think that's what it's called, can possibly be a threat because as they both competing for who's going to have the largest market share, the challenge, the great thing about that, you have competition. So it keeps both of them sharp and both of them moving forward until obviously, like we mentioned earlier, until one of them buys out the other. But until then, I think it is going to be a challenge. And we have to know though, because here's the thing, I'm gonna share something, and I know people get upset about this. But we have to understand in a capitalistic society, and a lot of people like to talk about jobs based on how they feel. Meaning, you know, this type of profession should make this amount because of what you think and feel the job, what their job is. But that's not how capitalism works. How it works is how fast can I get a replacement for that particular job? And if they can get a fast replacement, they don't cherish that job as much because they know they can get rid of the person, get another person in. So we have to understand those type of jobs are more at risk in all industries. So, and I think a lot of times people don't want to accept that because they look at it as based on what they feel, but that's not how it works in capitalism. So I think that Chat GTP is definitely going to have a major effect because in a capitalistic society, it's all about cutting costs. I don't make the rules. I just understand them, just trying to relay them. That's my take on it.
What you think, Perry? You think that Chat GPT is going to impact the sort of work that you do, or just the job market in general?
Yeah, I think it will, man. I use it today. I think here's the thing. I use it for a lot of stuff to set up the framework for stuff I really already know. But, you know, it's to me, it's like a big and I think it'll go a lot deeper than that. But right now it's like a big I don't want to, it's almost like an encyclopedia, Rolodex, the whole nine. So it's like any type of framework you need to set up to say, hey, I need to do, and it doesn't matter. It could be a contract, it could be anything. You know, it's going to grab you the right outline. So it's basically like, to me, I use it a lot for an outline for everything. And then I go and fill in the blanks but I make sure it updates me. And it's stuff I've done, but you used to do it the long way. Now it's like, okay, cool. Here's all the outline. Now let me fill in the blanks with tailored to what I specifically need it for. I think it's going to change everything. I mean, I think it's really going to change everything, especially as it gets more and more integrated into day-to-day life and what we do. Yeah, I think it's big time. I think it's really big time.
So Tim, Peter Investor M, you know, last year in March, I spent a significant amount of time creating this spreadsheet, this budgeting spreadsheet, and I primarily used Chat GPT in order to assist me with it. You know, there were I was essentially following a video that I found online, but the video had some key missing pieces that weren't really explained well. And so it was the result of me being able to ask those questions repeatedly. No, don't do this. No, no, don't do this. I want you to do this. No, that's not the answer I'm looking for. I want you to do this. And I would incessantly ask these questions. I'd be up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I have like an addictive sort of personality. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up just sitting there since 2 o'clock until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I knew like inch by inch I was going to get there. And now I have the spreadsheet, but now the spreadsheet is so big, it takes like 10, 15 minutes to open it up. So I'm working on developing it for the channel in order for me to be able to have that as something that can be a value add to someone's world. It's just now about figuring out a way to take all those heavy calculations that I am doing in a spreadsheet and compressing them to where like a cell phone can actually do the calculations, or your laptop can easily do it without having to wait the 10, 15 minutes. How do you think that it impacts your work, Peter Investor M? So salute for asking that question, right? And he says that the best way to prevent people from stealing your jokes is to trademark them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tricky because now you were talking about a whole nother process. Maybe copyright. Maybe if somebody can document it, but I don't know. The trademark process takes like months, like 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year. I don't know if that's something that can be easily attained for the purpose of being able to write jokes, but maybe if it's already documented and it's recorded, the MCA can protect it, from actually being stolen. So now what does Ine say? Katt Williams did another interview with Willie D that aired today. So yeah, here we go. It's like a wave.
It's doing numbers.
Right? And she says, what did she say? She says that it's at 1.7 already, and it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, this is just going to be a whole wave. And like Perry said, if people can go ahead and take advantage of the opportunity for them to get the exposure right now, man, do it. Peter Investor M says, Katt Williams did something incredible. He touched almost every topic, including politics, finance, and competition. He really did cover a significant amount of things that were happening out here, even to the point of talking about Mark Zuckerberg having a $275 million bunker in Hawaii to shield himself. 275 guys. To shield himself from like radioactive attacks or something along those lines. So it's just really wild out there. All right. So what did she say? She said she loves our take on this. Exactly, right? I think it's really important for us to have these conversations because they all are related if we really think about it. There's an ecosystem that we have out here. I realized 2019 that every weekend someone is in town. Every weekend there is some sort of comedian, there's some sort of musical performance. If you really are not really disciplined, you could find yourself spending money every single weekend in the name of entertainment, So Peter Investor M says Bard is also a tool. Ine says it takes about 3 to 4 months for a trademark application to even be assigned to an examiner, right? So that's a significant amount of time. So I don't know, Peter, that's a tricky amount of time for you to say that you're going to trademark them if you are really honing in on your material at that time. And hopefully you've documented it through some sort of media or some sort of media related mechanism, right? All right, where's the time machine, right? I would take ChatGPT back to the 90s, right? Yeah, I mean, there'd be tremendous value in having it in the 90s and the things that you could actually do with it going back that far. I mean, think about like pre-YouTube, how there was so much gatekeeping. Like if you wanted to know something, you had to know someone who was an expert and you could go to them and say, hey, are you willing to take me on as a mentee? Are you willing to show me the way? What can I do in order for me to be instructed by you? But now, man, I just bought a sewing machine and an embroidery machine, and I've been spending my time on YouTube. And I was lucky yesterday. I went to Joanne's for the very first time, and I'm there and I'm talking to the ladies there, and they're saying, "What are you doing?" And then I share with them what I'm doing, and they say, "Oh, really? You know, what does your design look like?" I show them my design, and they say, "You know, it'd be really nice if you did this and did that, you know, with your design." And I said to myself, I was like, "Man, you know, like this is really good for me to have people who are willing to share that information and not gatekeeping, instead of saying, okay, yeah, you're on your own." Instead, they were saying, "Hey, you should do this, you should do that. And I actually have a machine you can buy from me, this, that, and the other." All the result of me being in the space where I could actually learn this information. And without YouTube, I don't know how much information we really have now. And it almost seems like it's like information overload. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover today. What I think that is a really a few key points that I feel like we can learn from Katt Williams and the conversation with Shannon Sharp. If you want to watch the rest of the video, I'm going to link it inside the description, and then we'll have an opportunity to check that out. You know, check out the Club Shay Shay. It's a really growing channel, and hopefully we can see that channel experience the growth, and as a result of that growth happening, hopefully he doesn't really take issue with people sharing his platform and sharing his interviews, because I think at that point everyone wins, because people are still knowing who the source is of the information, and we just have an opportunity to have side conversations as a result of that. So Tim, if you want to have if you have any closing remarks for us in reference to some of the observations with Katt Williams, or some of the things that maybe you would share to a younger version of yourself as a result of the observations with Katt Williams, I'll let you go ahead and go, sir.
Yeah, so I say for anyone out there listening, definitely make sure that you try to, when you look at videos like the Katt Williams interview, try to look for the golden nuggets on how you can take some of the information and apply it real time. And I also say, starting out, you really need to just focus on a few things, but one of the big things is making sure that you get a good understanding of self, taking the time to learn self, taking the time to understand that money is part of the equation, but not the only equation, because you got to have the mental capacity of understanding, control, discipline also with the money. But you also need to focus on getting some skills so you can start making sure that you solidify your living until you find a mate, or if you decide you want a mate. I think you just got to make sure you do those things. But I was in with this. Those two things should ultimately start with, you have to believe that you could do it, start doing the work, understand that the process is going to have some bumps in the road, but that's part of the process. And then you need to make sure you continue to execute on the stuff that's going to allow you to move the ball forward and get you closer to whatever goals and things that you're looking for yourself. That's all I have.
So yeah, Perry, you have any closing remarks for the chat based upon our conversations today?
No, man, I think Tim summed it up, man. The only thing I'll say is, man, take the right path. Don't take shortcuts, take the right path. And something that Katt Williams touched on a lot was, you have to hone your craft. We always go back to a trade, a skill. That's something, no one can take. And the more trades and skills that you add, the more valuable you are in the marketplace. And obviously value in the marketplace equals money. So just do things the right way. That's what I'll say, man. Great stream.
Yeah. So, and with that said, you can find the brothers to the channel. We are the Finance Bros. You can find Perry and Likely at Perry and Likely here on YouTube, and the Intentional Millionaire here on YouTube. And I think that it's really good to have these conversations, and for us to all learn from the conversations that other people are having. And we all have an opportunity for us to be engaged in discussion that moves the ball forward. What I learned from this conversation is that we cannot compromise our values in the name of money, because we don't want people to have anything over us to the point that we are not able to move in the future, and they are taking advantage of us, thinking that they have the power in order for them to determine our destiny overall. So, appreciate you for coming through. Thank you for checking out the channel. Consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, peace.